Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Your Honor. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. This episode, obviously, this is this is the penultimate episode, and so I love how literally everything is coming to a head. Like every avenue, every storyline is closing in to just... It's all kind of circling the same train, and it's going to be so interesting to see. I mean, granted, I'm talking like we're at the end of this. Let's break it down at the beginning of this. First and foremost, the whole Joey thing. Once again, it's always interesting because apparently he's been hiding out for the past 3 months, and Jimmy's been trying to track him down because Jimmy knows like what him and Carlo were up to about like, oh yeah, the money that's owed and stuff like that. And so Joey's running, jumps down, hurts his leg, and then there's cops nearby. I'm like, you're not going to turn yourself into the cops, or you're not going to, and he turns himself into the cops. So yeah, Fiona, the lawyer, and Nancy in there, and, asking a whole bunch of questions. I was like, oh boy. And Joey cracks. He's like, you know what? I got what you need. Because obviously it's like, yeah, Jimmy's after me because of all the like side dealings me and Carlo are up to. And it's like, right, that's what the $150,000 was about. I was like, all right, plus I heard him talk about cracking Kofi's head like a watermelon. It's like the watermelon, his words exactly. It's like, yes. And it's just like, but you gotta help me out, which I love. This comes up later on because like the moment in the courtroom when Fiona drops the information about Joey as a witness, the look on Jimmy's face, Jimmy was like, wait, what? What? The look on his face was just kind of like, he was looking like, he looked like he wanted to scream out, what the fuck? That blindsided him like that. Especially because you've been apparently looking for him. But not only has he popped up, he's popped up to basically send your kid back to jail. And in particular, send him to jail for murder. So that's the whole thing. And now it's a situation like, all right, so how is Michael going to play this? It's like he's trying to keep an even kilter and trying to decide like, okay, what am I going to do? And so... because Fiona's like, well, this Joey kind of handed himself to us because he turned himself in. Obviously, Xander's like, no, like this witness wasn't on the list. Obviously, a conversation later on with Jimmy I thought was interesting because they make sure. I'm surprised Jimmy didn't say anything, but Michael walks up not realizing that this is where it happened, I don't think. But Jimmy's like, okay, so... basically asking these questions about Rocco, basically like, oh, was he already dead? It's like, yes, he was dead. Don't mess with me. He's like, no, he was dead. Also, do you have nightmares about killing a 17-year-old? He was like, yeah, I do. So, there's that. And there's also the whole, once again, the whole Joey situation. It's like, okay, so we will try to figure out this whole Joey thing. Like, Joey's, an addict, so basically get him into overdose. And Michael's like, well, he's basically saying, like, we're not asking your permission because I don't give a damn if you're down with this or not. We're about to make this happen. And, Michael's making a point of, like, all right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow Joey to speak. And then you tell Xander to, ask for, a wait so that he could, prepare for the cross-examination. So give him, like, a day. And then he's like, well, it's from there, it's your department, however it is you manage to get to him. Once again, it's like, it's that back and forth where, like, he's a little intimidated by Jimmy, but then he says that line looking at Jimmy like, oh, like, I'm taking back control of this conversation. So, there's that. There's also, like, the Nancy situation where, like, he's asking Nancy, like, hey, oh, Joey and everything, right? If you ever want to talk about things, you can talk to me about it. It's like, you're letting someone else take over things. It's like, no, this is your call. This could be your big case that makes your career and stuff like that. But it's also like, let me use this as an opportunity. Hey, if you want to bounce some stuff off of me, whether it's about Cusack, whether it's about this, I'll be your ear. It's like, oh, because he wants to know, like, how much she knows. Because the whole thing is, like, because Jimmy brings up the fact is that Joey knows about the whole Kofi thing, that it wasn't Kofi. He was there when that information got dropped. Well, at least he was, I don't think he was in the room. I think Carlo was the only one there, but Carlo most likely talked to him about Kofi not being the one. So it's like Joey knows. So Joey will probably not only talk about, what Carlo's responsible for, but also what Kofi wasn't responsible for. So it's like, this kind of benefits us. We're both kind of screwed. Because for him, it's like, I've already lost one son. I'm not about to lose another one. So we got to, fix this situation. So he's trying to figure out how much Nancy, because Nancy's like, yeah, after the trial about this whole taking down Carlo thing, then we'll kind of pump him for more information, see where else it all goes. It's like, okay. Then Nancy kind of screws the pooch a little bit the moment, like, Jimmy walks up and she's like, I know what you're doing. She's like, I see you. He's like, what? Excuse me? She's like, stay away from Michael and Adam. And then Jimmy's like, Adam? And she's like, yeah, you fuck with them, you fuck with me. And then at that moment, you see Jimmy being like, Adam? He's like, probably thinking to himself, no. And because obviously he saw Adam, but obviously he saw Adam from far away, but he knows that, like, obviously Michael has a kid. So on the way, they're looking him up. And I think, like, Fia had, like, hit, like, one of his posts or whatever being like, hey boyfriend or something like that. And it's like, I think Jimmy doesn't know, but Jimmy's thinking like, so my daughter is dating the kid who killed my son. It's dating the son of the dude who killed my son. So that's why I'm wondering, like, I think that's as far as he's going. So probably thinking like, he might try to look at this as like, oh, Michael's just trying to like find another avenue to kind of get the upper hand on us. That might be what Jimmy's thinking, because he's not correlated that it was Adam. Like I said, with the way things have been set up, I'll go ahead and talk about it. I think next episode is what I've been constantly bringing up. Adam's going to be around him, have like a panic attack, hit that inhaler. It's all going to piece together to Jimmy, because Jimmy realizes he'll do anything for his kids. And in that moment, he'll realize Michael has done all of this for his kid, But some real surprises I was surprised by was, like, obviously Michael's like, no, I want to talk to Joey by myself, yada, yada, yada. And it's talking to him about, like, oh, yeah, there was this poet that basically, like, thousands of men have lived without love but not water. So basically, it was like, anytime you're stressing out, like, drink a cup of water. And I was wondering what that was all about. And it's just to keep, the more nervous and anxious you get him drinking more and more water. Because it's like, it turns out... I was surprised because, like, Michael was like, I'm gonna let him testify. And I was like, all right. And then Zen was like, all right, can we have, a break until tomorrow? And then it's like, and then you have Michael being like, no, he's testifying right now. And Jimmy's looking like, he's what? I was like, what is these big ball moves? I'm like, why would you do that? You told Jimmy you're going to set this up so that it can go down. I guess it's like, because I immediately was thinking, like, you're trying to get him later on, trying to find an opportunity to get him so this presents an opportunity. So I was like, why would Michael screw that over? But while he's on the stand, Joey's drinking the water more and more, and the way he's kind of going out of it, I was like, the water's been drugged. It's like, because Michael did pick up those pills earlier, and like with the whole banana thing, that's why I was like, oh, is he? Oh, but then I was like, maybe not. He's just giving it to, he gave the banana to, I think, Django. So I was like, oh, I guess that's what I was confused by. But then, like, his condition gets worse and worse. It's like, oh shit. And so Michael goes back in there, cleans out the thing he had the water in, washes out the glass, gets the pills, and just like, okay. Part of me wonders that I guess because it's beneficial, because if it's a situation where he's in jail and like overdoses, it's going to look a little too damn suspicious. But if he's on the stand and he just gets a little sick, then it's like, okay, we have to ignore all his testimony. But then Nancy looking over at Jimmy, and just the way, like, first looking at Michael and then looking at Jimmy, and I'm like, oh shit. Nancy, cop hat on, she's starting to piece it together, like Michael's like weird behavior and all of this. So there's that. I'm like, Nancy's like a few steps away from figuring this whole situation out. Speaking of, there was a scene in a recap I did not see. It must have been like a post-credit, or I must have somehow missed it. I don't remember that scene between Adam's grandma and Nancy about like the pictures, and it's connected to figuring out what happened to Robin. And I'm like, I did not see that scene. That's an entire scene I missed somehow. Like I said, I don't know whether that was like an end credit thing, because I don't watch the credits just so I can avoid watching the next episode. I'm like, I did not see that scene. Where the fuck was that scene? That had to be like last episode or episode before. Like, it had to be fairly recent. I was like, when was that? But Nancy's been looking into that, and it turns out, I guess she saw like Robin's glasses or hat or something. She saw something related to Robin on the bed, and it's like, so it turns out Robin was having an affair, and it's like, Michael's like, I knew. She's like, you knew and you didn't say anything? This dude's like the #1 suspect. And it's like, yeah, but it's like the reason he didn't say anything, because it's like, Adam has a great memory of his mom, of who she was. He's like, I don't want to tarnish that. It's also interesting because remember the lie he was saying to get to Home Dude's, get to the surveillance footage of the dude at the gas station. Like, oh, so it wasn't bullshit. He had that, once again, that's how you tell a lie, by keeping it fairly close to the truth. And so, yeah, he was lying, but he based that lie on some truth. His wife was having an affair, which I'm like, okay, I didn't expect her death to become like because they make it such a point of it, but I didn't expect it to be a subplot. I mean, because it gets mentioned every once in a while, but I thought that was just like character stuff. I didn't expect them to actually make a point of that, you know? Now, I'm like, especially it's like, oh, so that means she was having an affair with someone from Desire. I guess because of that, she got too close to some information she shouldn't have. Like, I didn't know how to really respond to that. I was like, I found that fascinating. I was like, I didn't expect, I thought it was just going to be like, oh, this random tragedy in their life that never got any resolution. Now it's potentially a resolution, and what that necessarily means, that's a whole lane within itself. So there's that. Then you also have like the Adam and Fia thing. They're enjoying their time together. Lo and behold, who shows up? Franny. Franny's like, oh, hi, Adam. Hi, Fia. I'm Adam's teacher. It's like, oh yeah, this is his favorite photographer, Vivian. I love her. And it's like, oh, I was like, this is weird and awkward. And it's like, and then she makes that whole comment about choices and stuff like that. And Adam's just kind of like, part of me was wondering if Fia had picked up anything, but I guess she was just like, she didn't think too much about it. But it's like, damn. Even to the point later on, Adam confronts Franny about it. It's like, you did it on purpose. And for her, it's like, you're dating it's like, for her, it's like, you don't actually love her. You're interested in her. Like this, you have some twisted fascination with her after you killed her brother and you got to know her. Like, basically, it's a twisted thing of like, they were brought together by this tragedy, and he's kind of going through his own tragic thing, losing his mom. So I think to some level that fucked him up. Plus the trauma of what he did and what that caused to Fia. Like, it's almost this twisted thing of like, I can heal her. Like, she can heal me and I can heal her. We can be there for each other. And Franny's kind of like, you know, despite everything, I know I'm in the wrong. I made a mistake, but I love you. And he's like, you're just jealous girlfriend. And she's like, you want it to be that because that would make it so easy. And he's like, easy. It's like, you got to end what you're doing. So, because you keep, like, it is hypocritical considering the circumstances under which it does come off like a little bit of jealousy, but at the same time, it was jealousy in the beginning. But now that she knows who Fia is, like, oh, that's Fia Baxter. You're dating the sister of the dude you killed. So there's that. But it's also like, you kind of almost look at it like, it's almost like you want him to do it just because it is, she can't 100% deny it. It isn't as easy as it's just jealousy. It is a thing of, you know, it's like, but she was basically saying like, you know, stop this before, and it's like before she finds out, and she's like, he's like, what are you gonna do, tell her? And he was almost looking like, no, because Franny's got this look like, I might tell her. And it's like, it makes sense. But then like Adam goes and talks to Charlie about it, and it's like, oh, I got a girlfriend. Yo, 2 girlfriends. He's like, oh man, playa, that's so sick. And one of them is my teacher. Oh yeah, but it's like, oh, you like the other one more. He's like, but I'll handle it. It's like, no, I got myself in this and I'll handle it. And the moment he said that, I was like, so it's hard to say whether he's like, I need to confide in somebody, Charlie. If I confide in my dad, it's going to turn the whole complicated thing. But Charlie won't judge me, won't say anything. So I guess he was like, I need to let this out. But you know what? I am going to handle it on my own. But there's also a part of me that's like, did he do that specifically because he knew Charlie would do something? I don't think he knew that Charlie would do anything. But Charlie confronting her like that, it's like, oh, you lose your job, you could go to jail. But then Franny drops it. It's like, yeah, you know, a 17-year-old, you know, especially after you ran someone over and kind of left them to die and stuff like that. And then Charlie's like, Adam? So it's like, wait, so you didn't realize it was Adam behind the car situation? Because it's like, he knows it wasn't Kofi. So maybe he's under the impression that it was much like Jimmy. Maybe the entire time he's been thinking it was Michael that did it. Maybe, I don't know. I think that's kind of what he's been, because like for him to be like, Adam? So now it's like, now he knows that Adam's the one who did it. It's like, Jesus. Like I said, everything's circling. There's also the lead thing, which I thought was so interesting, because she opened something that was Kofi's, and she's looking at, I had to pause the TV. I'm like, I'm not seeing why this is so important. Then she hits up Eugene, and it's like, yeah, this is his GED. Yeah, he failed. He failed it at the time that Rocco got hit by the car. I'm like, yo, Lee's still doing her thing. Once again, Charlie told Michael from the beginning, do not be careful around her. If you're going to get close to her, get close to her, sure, just to keep an eye on her. But she's out here making moves on her own. So it's like Michael's not in the loop of everything she's doing. which is interesting that this information gets presented to Eugene because Eugene just found out like, yo, he's in good with Big Mo and Lil Mo because he's like suggesting like, yo, I want to help you guys build up the bank. It's like you can work on churches and basically use that as a means of like, cleaning your money. And they're like, all right, they're kind of digging the idea because obviously he's going down like, hey, because this is the only family he's got left. So he wants to prove like, hey, I'm useful. I'm your guy. You guys took care of me when I kind of had no one. So I got your back. You have my back. I got yours. But then it's like Little Mo slips up and talks about Rudy. And he was like, and Eugene's like, who's Rudy? And he was like, man, you don't need to know all our secrets yet. You just keep doing what you're doing. I was like, okay. I was like, that's going to come back to bite you in the ass. It's like Lil Mo kind of slipping all the time. But then during the conversation, Lee brings up Desire. You think they got your back? They don't. They put an X on Kofi's back the moment they told him to take the fall for it. They basically set up the situation and left him to the Baxter's wrath. Let them, when they were and they weren't there to kind of defend your brother in any shape or form. So it's like they kept you close so that they could keep an eye on you, basically, so you don't go sniffing around and finding out. And now for Eugene, it's like his entire world get flipped upside again because it's like it turns out this new family you were so indebted to because, oh man, they looked after me, they got my back, they're looking out for me. And it's like, oh, they weren't looking out for my brother. Because we know that, they don't know that he doesn't know that. But obviously Little Mo and Big Mo have known about the Rocco situation. So even if they wanted to say like, hey, they didn't know about the Kofi thing, even if they wanted to say from the beginning, hey, maybe they didn't know. I mean, to be fair, Kofi said he didn't do it. So there's that. But even if little Big Mo wanted to play ignorance, she knows because she confronted, Jimmy about it. So it doesn't change the fact that they are guilty about this because, which now because Eugene was all about his revenge against the Baxters, but now it's like, these people, I'm ready. It's almost like I'm ready to flip them the bird too. So he's like, yeah, Lil Mo mentioned someone named Rudy. And it's like, Rudy, who's that? As someone, once again, is it Rudy or Ruby? I keep forgetting. But it's like, I don't know, saying that, he was worried about me, but I'm smarter than Kofi and I'm more loyal, so I was like, now that's interesting. Because now, at least under the impression, she's like, whoever did it might have been someone else in Desire, so they framed Kofi, they let Kofi take the fall for it to protect someone within Desire. She's a little off base, but she's getting close, and that's a problem. And she later on looks into it, and she finds out who Ruby is, because it's like, oh yeah, like, he's got Little Mo, he arrested Lil Mo on multiple occasions, no charges brought up. So it's like, she's talking to her assistant Freya. It's like, so what does that tell you? Either an informant or a dirty cop, or both. So it's like, all right. So Lee's making her moves as well. Then there's that whole interesting scene with Fia, where it's a whole thing of her dad and her mom, and I guess like their priest sitting down and talking to her, because obviously her mom had a whole conversation about God and stuff like that. And now it's like, oh, this new boyfriend in your life, is he influencing you in a certain way? And I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, I wonder, did Jimmy bring up who Adam is? And so that's why she's like, oh, like he's probably a bad influence on you? Or was she just coming from this perspective of like, all this different, you've been different lately? Oh, like not wanting to believe in God and stuff like that. So she's like, it must be the boyfriend. Jimmy might be the only one that knows about the Adam connection of like who Adam really is, being Michael's son and stuff like that. But maybe he did tell Gina. Just the question she was asking, like, do you love him? And, but obviously there is a whole conversation to be had, because like for her being like, it's like, oh, there's a whole conversation about God asking Abraham to kill his son. But it's like, oh, the fact is that you were willing to do it means how much you love me. So now you don't have to do it, which is like, let's not, like, I'm not trying to bash no religion or something like that. But when you think about some of the stuff in the Bible, like when you hear shit like that, you're like, damn, Bible's, you hear about general stuff that goes on in your Bible. You're like, oh, that's kind of fucked up. Some very fucked up shit in the Bible. It's kind of crazy. But it's like, she's like, would you do that? Like, would you sacrifice your own son for your love of God? What about you, Mom? Would you kill me if God asked you to? Her mom never gave it a damn answer, so that was just really fascinating. It's like, and she's like, do you love him? It's like, no, I hate him. She's talking about Adam, not God, honey. And it's like, yes, I love him. And it's like, whew. This is getting more and more complicated, to the point Jimmy later on is like, how much? She's like, what? How much do you love him? She's like, with all my heart. It's like, okay, so I want to meet him. Oh, really? When? I was like, all right, I figured he was going to be like, as soon as possible. I didn't expect the literal words to be, now. I'd like to meet him now. She texts Adam. Adam's on his way, and I'm like, she's probably like, hey, you want to come over? Probably didn't specify like, hey, my dad wants to meet you. It's going to be a whole sit. It's going to be interesting. And that's why I'm thinking, like I said, that scene, I've been picturing, I didn't expect it to happen this late in the season, but it makes sense that it would. But like, it's got to happen. That scene of him pulling out the halo, it all piecing together. Dude, they're all, like I brought up at the beginning, all these roads are connecting now. It's like, we're at that point. Next week's episode is the finale. This is supposed to be like a mini series, so like you see elements where you go like, okay, I definitely could see where a season 2 potentially could go, but this seems like it's a one and done. And so, well, I assume it is because I know this is based off. I want to say it's an Israeli show. Because I remember seeing that before the show, the series aired, but I think I remember it's the show. This is actually based off another show. I want to say it was an Israeli show. I could be mistaken. So I'm curious to look into that to see, like, eventually when this story finishes after next week, just to look up and if I can track it down. It might not be possible, but if I can, I want to look into some of the like differences between the story and stuff like that. How much is similar? How much they might have changed in the adaptation, but. This definitely seems like, because there's so much room that you're like, okay, where is all these other things going to go? But it seems like all these roads are going to lead to a story. And I mean, like I said, it could be, because limited series can, like, if a show does well enough, sometimes you're like, there's enough here for a season 2. So that's why I'm curious, like, how much is going to be 100% resolved in the finale? How much is, I don't know. I haven't looked into it. I kind of don't want to know if there's going to be a season 2 ahead of time. Usually I wait until the season finales or finales in general to wait till then, just because I don't want that kind of float in my head. I just want to, just kind of, if you kind of go into something already knowing there's going to be new, it just, I don't know. I just like not knowing until like I'm like done watching something and until I get all my thoughts out about a finale or something, then to be like, okay, and I found out it's got another season, that type of situation. So I'm so curious, but like I said, I'm fairly sure this is still going to be a one and done, but we'll see. That means everything's going to come to an end. This is going to be a wild turn of events with like I said, everyone's coming slowly etching their way to this conclusion. We're getting to the point where more and more people are getting filled in on what's going on. Details that are, other characters are getting filled in on details that are literally 1 or 2 steps away from figuring everything out. It's going to be wild to see what goes down in the finale. I cannot wait. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.